Hey everyone, SunTide here. Hope you all are doing great. So, I am hard at work on what looks like it's going to be a very extended, very detailed, very long element video with way too many builds. In the meantime, what I was going to be doing was I was going to make a guide video slash build video on how to very easily get an A rank on AT Raidao, the free challenge quest. But that turned out to be relatively easy to do, at least in my opinion. Even with like a full-on defensive Fortify build, getting like 11-12 minutes in AT Raidao was pretty straightforward. So honestly, if you are struggling, just try a defensive build. I posted some really good ones in my post-AT Raidao video. So yeah, try those if you're struggling. So in my opinion, those are the easiest, best, most reliable ways to get an A rank against free challenge AT Raidao. However, that leaves an interesting open question, which is not what's the most reliable way to get an A rank, but what is the most unreliable way to get as low a time as possible with your builds. So that was a question that friend of the channel KJP and I tried to answer, and in our opinion, the best way to get that is with the highest damage boosting skill in the game, which you should be able to guess from the title of this video and what's on screen right now, and that is Heroics. So, what Heroics does is, when you're on low HP, it massively increases your attack, your defense, or both, depending on the level of the skill. For damage, there are two levels we're going to consider. So at level 4, it gives you 10% attack, which is actually like really, really huge already, and also gives you 100 defense. So in practice, 100 defense is going to be around 15 to 20% less damage you'll take, which is a pretty significant bonus to survivability. It's not going to completely change the game, but it is something. At level 5, you don't get any defense bonus, but you get an absolutely ridiculous plus 30% damage, and this is insane. If you consider things like in a crit boost, at max benefit, crit boost is only going to increase your damage by something like 10 to 15%. So having a 30% attack bonus is absolutely ridiculous. The problem is it's really hard to use. So yes, one more thing as well is that also in like full-on speedruns, it is not allowed just because it is so strong. So yeah, don't use this in speedruns or people will be very upset at you. So this is only for casual play, and only for casual play if you really want to use such a difficult, reliable skill. But if you can, your damage will go way over the roof. Other cool things is it's fairly synergetic with the skill Latent Power. So Latent Power is a skill that boosts your affinity when you take a lot of damage. Heroics requires you to take lots of damage. So that's cool, and Latent Power is also very nice nowadays because of the new AT Raidao Gamma pieces. So there's that. Other notes are that there is a food skill called Piping Hot Meal, which grants even more damage than Heroics, but the HP threshold for that to activate is even lower. So any chip damage will defeat you if you have Piping Hot Meal active. So yeah, also it's random, so you can't reliably use it. In Rise, the food skill had the same conditions as the Heroic skill, and therefore the Heroic skill was useless because you can get Heroics from food and also go max damage armor. Here, you need to use the Heroic skill if you want to make use of Heroics, which I think makes more sense. To easily get Heroics, you have a few options. So it is a 2-slot armor decoration, and 2 slots are not that hard to get, so that's nice. You can also have a 3-point talisman, so you can get Heroics 3 with a single talisman, which is very nice. So with 2 armor decorations and a talisman, you can get it. Some decent parts also get you Heroics, so the Guardian de Shigama and the Shu Wu pieces also get you some Heroics, so you actually have fairly good options to get this skill. You aren't going to lose too much to get Heroics 4 or Heroics 5, which is very nice. So Heroics is actually like fairly decently accessible, which is really cool. So yeah, in this video we're going to talk about all of these different Heroics builds, considering Heroics 4 and Heroics 5. We'll look at nice general use builds, we'll talk about Fortify builds, we'll talk about Quick Sheath builds, which you might want to use for Longsword. You can also replace Quick Sheath with other defensive skills, which could be nice and increase the reliability of Heroics. We're going to talk about Adrenaline Rush builds, which could be nice for dual blades and bows, and we're going to talk about builds that don't use Affinity, which is very nice for example, the Gunlance. So, yes. And as always, how I make these builds, I have a Python code that just iterates through all of them, 5 brute force, and tell me all of the best builds given the constraints. These are the constraints you see on screen right now. Been on this channel before, you know the deal. Let's just keep going for now. Okay, let's go for the builds. So first off, we have a nice, good Heroics 4 build, and I think this is a nice baseline for how Heroics 4 builds are going to work. So before Heroics activates, you're going to lose around 5% damage versus a non-Heroics build, which is significant. So you will be substantially, noticeably weaker without Heroics activated. But when you do, you get a 10% bonus on top of that, so you get about 5% stronger than a non-Heroics build. Which, in practice, means that with around 50% of the time, Heroics 4 will be better than a non-Heroics build. Of course, yeah, making sure you have 50% uptime, you sort of need to try for that, or at least be very good to not cart when you're on low health. Now, if you want to do that, the build for that is on screen right now. So you want to go Radau Gamma for basically everything except for the Greaves, which are going to be the Numinous Greaves Beta. We're going to use the Heroics Charm, along with one Heroics Decoration to get us Heroics 4. And yeah, so this is going to be your sort of nice baseline for how Heroics is going to work for our later and more specific builds. We managed to get a lot of the really good other offensive skills. So we get Latent Power 5, which is very nice with Heroics because you can lose HP and activate it pretty easily. You're going to get Counter Strike 3, which is also nice and has energy. 3 Max Might for Affinity. 1 point of Exploit, 1 point of Burst, 1 point of Agitator. So there's some really good offensive skills in this as well. Now, if you want even more damage, we have a Heroics 5 build, which should be on screen right now. So, before Heroics, this is going to be 6.5% weaker than normal build, so again, very significant. However, because you get a 30% damage bonus, after Heroics activates, that's a 22% damage boost, which is absolutely crazy. So, yes, if you can maintain uptime on this, your damage will go way through the roof. The build for that is going to be slightly different. So here we're going to use the Guardian Dosha Guma Braces, which comes with Heroics. So therefore we get Heroics 5 pretty easily without losing any more damage. And then yeah, we get some other nice damage skills. So we get 2 free 1 slots, which is nice. You can put that to, for example, Divine Blessing, to maybe save you from a cart without relying on your defense, or relying instead on the 25% Divine Blessing uptime, or whatever else you want to put for the free 1 slots. And yeah, so we get 3 Max Might, 3 Counter Strike, and yeah, so just some good damage skills behind that. Now, the Fortify builds were honestly the main things that inspired this video, but I've sort of changed my mind on how good they are. So in practice, after 1 cart, Fortify builds are going to be around the same as non-Fortify builds. So after 1 cart, switching to a Fortify build will get you the nice defense bonus, but won't give you really any noticeable attack bonus. However, with 2 carts, you get a nice attack bonus on top of that. The problem is that getting the 2 carts takes some time. It takes about 1.5 minutes to do two carts, and 1.5 minutes is quite a long time for a hunt for 10% damage. So yeah, I guess it's nice just for completion. But yes, if you do cart and then you want to use Heroics, then this is a good build for Heroics 4, and here right now is a build for Heroics 5. Both of these builds have Warcry from the Blanco pieces. I have not included Warcry on these because I'm assuming you're going to be using Demon Powder if you really want to use Heroics. But the Warcry is very nice if you for some reason run out of Demon Powder or something. But yeah, so if you want to use Heroics with Fortify, there are these builds. This is the build that KJPA is using in the clip on screen. But yeah, Heroics and Fortify, there's that. Now, let's look at Heroics with some more general use or specific weapons. So if you want to use Longsword, you might want to use Quick Sheathe 3, and this is a nice Quick Sheathe 3 Heroics build. So here we're using the Radau Gamma pieces for the Helmet, Mail, and Coil, along with the Guardian Wrathfulness Van Braces and the Numinous Greaves with Heroics Charm. So here we have space for Quick Sheathe 3. You can use this for other weapons to put in Divine Blessing 3 or say Thunder Res 3 to give you a bit more survivability. You lose about 1.5% less damage than the non-Quick Sheathe 3 set, so 1.5% damage for 2 1 slots, which is something worth considering if you choose to use that. So yeah, this is Heroics 4 Quick Sheathe 3, and now we have Heroics 5 with Quick Sheathe 3. You have a few options for this one actually. So you can change the greaves for a few other pieces. So the Sheathe greaves right now gives you 1 point of adrenaline rush, which is free. Like, I haven't considered it in this build, so that's nice. You can put on the Guardian Doshigama greaves instead, which lets you have Doshiguma Might, which is the set bonus that increases damage with power clashes and I think offsets. The weird thing is apparently that skill does not stack with Might Seeds. So yeah, and also it's completely useless for the longsword. Instead you can use the Rathalos Greaves, which give you Evade Window 2 instead of Adrenaline Rush 1. So that could be a good choice if you just wanted that bit more reliability. But yeah, for damage, Sheathe Greaves gets you Adrenaline Rush 1. So yes. Now, let's talk about Adrenaline Rush builds in specific. So again, this could be nice for dual blades and a bow. So, in these builds, I've ignored Maximite, and I've assumed you get Adrenaline Rush at like 80% uptime. And so this build does have like 2 points of Max Might, even though it's not being included, just from the good pieces that give you the Lord Soul bonus, the God's Tenacity, which is a nice and raw bonus. So yes, if you want to use this for the dual blades and whatever else, the Heroics 5 build is basically exactly the same. You just trade one of your Adrenaline Rush decorations for another point of Heroics decoration. So using all of these 3 slots for 2 slot skills in Heroics, which is interesting. Of course, you can change your charm for the Heroics charm and put Counter-Strike instead, if for some reason you don't have 5 Heroics decorations. So options, you have choice for what you want to do. So yeah, again, these are the builds if you want to use Adrenaline Rush. And last up are going to be the builds if you don't have much affinity. So this is for Gunlance and whatever else. I've calculated the builds assuming that 20% of your damage can possibly crit, which seems reasonable. So with 20% of your hits possibly critting, Maximum Might is actually pretty decent still at level 3. Not the decorations, it just comes down through the parts you have. So we're getting Lord Soul, we're getting Agitator 4, we're getting Latent Power 2, we're getting Burst. So some nice damage boosting skills along with Heroics 4. Now again, please change the weapon per your preferences. I just left the art in here. But, please change this for like the G Lawful Boars or whatever else for the Gunlance. The Heroics 5 build is going to be more or less exactly the same as well, but you're going to trade an Agitator Deco for Heroics this time, and therefore we get Heroics 5 for even more damage. So, yeah, I think that is basically this video. So the bottom line is that Heroics can give you some really massive damage bonuses if you fight a low HP. Heroics 4 gives you damage and survivability, which could be nice, and is optimal usually if you have more than 50% uptime, which is possible if you're comfortable fighting at low health, and the defense really helps you with that. Heroics 5 is the best damage boost in the game, and with 20% uptime, it is really strong. Problem is, you have no extra defense. It still works with other defensive bonuses, things like Fortify or defense boost if you have that on. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a difficult to use. But if you can use it, go for it. Go for it if you aren't in a TA speedrun and therefore cheating. If you're just playing casually, feel free to and have fun with this. So yeah, with that being said, I thank all of you so much for watching. Thank you my Patreon supporters and whatever else. I am still on no ad revenue time, so yes, I'd especially like to thank all of these people and all of you watching as well. Hopefully I can get the ad rev stuff sorted at least before the Element video, because I think that'll be a lot of effort, but if not, it'll go up anyways. And as always, thank you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!